Welcome back to Stop the Takes. Football pod focus on getting back to just talking about. I'm Dakota, and that is Austin, and we are live on YouTube to go over the 2023 NFL quarterback class, evaluating their first two seasons, the expectations that went into that, and how things went in their second season, given how some had better or worse rookie seasons. So we are back after our mini hiatus. It's been like a week and a half, I think, since we've been live. So appreciate all of our millions of loyal listeners and viewers coming back. How are we feeling, Austin?
Feeling pretty good, man. Excited to get into it. It's been, like you said, it's been a minute since we had a little discussion on the show. So ready to get into some 2023 QBs.
Yeah, and as it is known on the show, we have shown that we're Titans and Colts fans. You see the Manning jersey back there. So this division, or these quarterbacks are near and dear to us, or in other words,
Formerly.
terrible. So three of them are in the AFC South in general. So we've had an opportunity to watch three of these guys pretty closely. But we are going to kick things off with the number one overall pick from 2023. Panthers traded up from 9th overall to 1st to go grab Bryce Young out of Alabama. And, you know, I feel like the expectations for him were a little all over the place. When you trade up for a guy, that automatically adds a bit of weight to what you expect that guy to be. But the Panthers were a pretty bad roster at the time they got him. So it was an interesting situation for him to go into in his season.
It was. I think, honestly, though, dude, I think a lot of people felt like the Panthers were close at the time. If we're just being honest, a lot of people felt like they were a quarterback away. I mean, they traded up quite a bit to go up and get Bryce Young. Obviously, Panthers fans know the trade. It doesn't look good in hindsight. Okay, it doesn't right now, but it's still young, man. And Bryce Young turned it around in year 2. But it could not have looked worse his rookie season. I mean, it was just absolutely abysmal, man. It looked like he did not belong in the NFL. That's how bad it was. In Bryce's defense, everything about the Panthers offense looked bad his rookie season. The offensive line wasn't playing well. The receiving core just wasn't it. I mean, that was one of the worst receiving cores in the league. But he was not helping. He was not helping the situation. He was absolutely awful. But I do have a theory about how bad he looked. Even though like all the metrics say he was this bad, but because a lot of people pointed to immediately Dakota with hindsight after Bryce Young's rookie year, it's like, okay, he was just too small to play the position. Like people immediately went to that. And that's still a conversation people are having, whether a quarterback the size of Bryce Young can still play in the league. Well, to me, there's enough evidence that says they can. Like Kyler Murray has played at a high enough level, and then Bryce Young in year 2 has played at a high enough level to tell me that yes, QBs at their size can play in the league. But when those QBs are playing poorly, it just looks worse, dude. It just looks worse. Like when a 5'9" quarterback is playing like crap, dude, it looks awful because it looks like he literally can't see anything. It looks like he can't see the receivers. He can't look over the offensive line. And it just looks really, really bad. When Josh Allen is playing bad, it's like, yeah, Josh Allen's playing bad, but he's 6'6", you know, he can run real good. It just looks better, dude. It just looks a lot better when a guy like Josh Allen is playing poorly versus Bryce Young. I think that played a little bit of a factor too, but I mean, through a year and a half, though, man, it looked like Bryce's career was dead. So that's what makes this resurgence so incredible, man.
Yeah, he had a pretty abysmal rookie season. And even from a PFF, yeah. And we referenced, you know, PFF grades. You know, we know they're not law of the land, but they're a good baseline for what a guy is day in and day out, week to week. And his PFF grade for his rookie season was like 61st among quarterbacks. He had like one game above an 80, with some absolute duds in there. And then to your point, he kind of just continued that for the first couple weeks of 2024, before turning it around. He gets benched, and we kind of just thought his career was probably over.
Yeah.
Like it literally looked like, okay, we screwed up massively. It's time to admit that and move on. And Andy Dalton went out there, you know, the fighting ginger went out there, and he looked decent for like a week or two, and then he started to be Andy Dalton. So then it was kind of like, all right, let's go back to Bryce. Hopefully, you know, let's just see what we can do. And he played really well. He immediately put together even from a PFF perspective, he kind of put, almost immediately his best game from a grading perspective, and then put a string of games to end the season where he only had one truly bad game in there against Dallas. But finished the season throwing 7 touchdowns and no picks in his last 3 games. And now we're sitting here saying, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Because you had over a season's worth of evidence to say that he was pretty bad. And now he ends this, 2024 looking better than his stats suggested too. So that's another reason, referencing PFF grading we like to do, because it's more than just the stats. That you don't go look at a box score. That doesn't tell you the true story. And to your point, the supporting cast in Carolina is not good.
No.
Adam Thielen, he helped make Adam Thielen look pretty good at his age. But outside of that, Leggett just was not. It was a reach for a first round pick in general, but was not a very good number 2 for them last year. So Bryce is very interesting. And to your point on the height thing, the Check the Mic guys were talking about that recently with Bryce and Kyler, and like how, to your point of how when it looks bad, it looks worse, but it also seems like there's more volatility with quarterbacks that are at that height. So maybe like their consistency from a week to week basis is almost just harder to predict than guys that are the normal size, because they're trying to look over the offensive line. Can they throw to every level down the field? And it's like when they get in a rut, it almost gets worse. So very interesting how his back half went compared to the first season or so of his career.
No doubt, and that's an interesting point that they brought up, because it's tough to know, is that like a sample size issue? Is that just a Kyler Murray and Bryce Young issue? Because there's other quarterbacks not at that size that have similar problems, right? That are volatile week to week. So it's hard to know. It's like, have we seen enough of those that size quarterback to really know if it's about the size or not? But sometimes it does look like it's the size. Let's just be on it. Like, because again, kind of like what I'm saying, like when it looks bad, it looks really, really bad, because it looks like they don't know, they literally can't play the game. Like they can't look over the offensive line. They don't know where their receivers are at. So it's just a guessing game most of the time. And also like Bryce, that's one thing that worries me about Bryce going forward, because Kyler is really good at escaping the pocket and extending the play. And Bryce was good at that at Alabama. He had a lot of that playmaking at Alabama. I don't know how much of that he showed in the NFL yet. Even when he got better last year, he's just not as athletic as Kyler is. So that's going to be interesting going forward to see how he works through that. But Bryce Young's biggest weapon is his anticipation, man. And he showed great anticipation at the end of last season. And, like you said, like really turned it around. Like not just like he started playing like average level or even slightly below average, because like before it was just like worst quarterback in the league level, like can't play in the NFL level. But dude, he got to the point to where, to me, and we'll get into the next guy when we do, with CJ Stroud's next, but it got to the point for me where it seemed like Bryce Young was playing better than Stroud to end their second years, which is insane to think about where Stroud was at the end of his rookie season. A lot of people thought he was the next elite guy, and where Bryce was, that comeback for Bryce is just incredible, dude. It was almost like within a season was almost worth, to me, comeback player of the year worthy. How bad he was, man. And I know they've changed the criteria of that award now, that it's like, it's not just about being bad and becoming good. You have to be injured and come back from injury, whatever. But yeah, man, that's how much he turned it around, and he's intriguing going forward. Like you said, it's a very intriguing situation, because it looked like, okay, it's time for the Panthers to look for their next quarterback. Well, now what do they do, Dakota? In the 2025 draft, they go and draft Ted McMillan with their top 10 pick. So guess what? It's time to build around Bryce Young. They clearly said, okay, we believe in Bryce again. He showed us enough to end his sophomore campaign that we're going to build around him. And that's exactly what they did by going out and getting T-Mac. And dude, that's a huge weapon to add, because we just got done saying how this Panthers wide receiving core still needs a lot of work. I mean, you have 50-year-old Adam Thielen. He's just not going to hang around forever. And then the only other, to me, the most intriguing piece is Jalen Coker, because Jalen Coker showed a lot as a UDFA. And Legette's still there. Legette, it's only one season. Like I've kind of said this in the past, how we get kind of get used to these receivers coming in and just lighting the league on fire, and we kind of expect that out of rookie receivers. And if you don't do that, we just write you off as a bust. So I think Leggett can still grow, but the thing is about Leggett though, he was limited coming out of college. Like he had a limited skill set coming out of college as well. So, but now you add T-Mac to the mix. It's an interesting receiving core. I'll say that it's interesting. It's not one of the best in the league, but it is interesting. It does heavily rely on T-Mac's development, however.
And back to one of your points earlier on the Kyler escaping the pocket and that mobility. That's another thing that Russell Wilson has always been really good at. Russell's an extender and it's probably why, right? Like he runs around in the back. He used to do it all the time in Seattle where he'd run around for 10 seconds and then the field is more open. You can see it better. So having that ability and, being able to do that is nice, but he does play. Bryce plays a bit like, I don't know, this isn't a comparison, but like Drew Brees, right? Drew Brees was like 6 foot. He's a bit taller, but like the way he played and being able to just kind of look up and over the pocket, is the way that Bryce kind of handles it. But you're right. At Alabama, he did move around a good bit. It's like that again, that we've talked about it before, but like that baseline of athleticism at the quarterback position has just changed, and he has that. And one thing I think that a guy that probably deserves some credit for Bryce is Dave Canales. He was the quarterback's coach in Seattle, which helped kind of unlock Geno Smith coming back. Right? Like that's what the resurgence of Geno Smith. He was the QB coach there. And then he went to Tampa before earning the head coaching job and helped Baker continue to develop and become good. Yep. So he's now been with 3 quarterbacks where he's kind of gotten the best out of them. So I think, to be honest, if Dave Canales doesn't get hired, if Frank Reich is still there or whoever, Bryce's career may
probably
be
over. It's probably over.
It probably is. And yeah, Dave may be the reason he's still around.
Yeah, that's a really good point, dude. And I think that's, sometimes it doesn't make sense to people why like GMs or owners fire coaches after one season. Well, that's a prime example of why. Like you saw Frank Reich was bad enough with the Panthers that's like, this is not going to work. We need somebody in here that's going to develop Bryce Young and put in that time with Bryce. And that's exactly what happened, man. And it's a really good point because he has a really good track record at this point in QB development. So it's going to be interesting going forward, man. He also just elevated the offense in general. I'll give part credit to Bryce and part credit to Canales because it's like, dude, that offense was, through 1.5 years, it was one of the, probably the worst offense in the NFL. But if not, it's top 3 worst offenses in the NFL. And dude, they were competing at the end of last season, man. Had that shootout with the Falcons in last year. Like they looked actually solid at the end of last year, with still lacking some talent, right? They have a solid offensive line. I won't say it's one of the best offensive lines in the league, but it's a solid offensive line. And then this, again, like I said, this intriguing receiving core. So, we'll see, man. Like it's hard to say that Bryce has completely turned it around because like you said, as of now, we have more evidence in the NFL that says he's really bad. But we also have this half a year of evidence that says, okay, he can, maybe he can do this and actually be a solid starting quarterback. So his projection going forward is really tough. But we'll see, man. We'll see. Cause like I said, the Panthers believe in him now. Like he is the Panthers guy. He is their franchise quarterback.
Yeah. And as you pointed out earlier, they drafted Tech McMillan, to build around him. They've added pieces on offense, for him, and the offensive line has been decent. It's a pretty good offensive line, probably like top 15 in the NFL. Maybe I'd probably cap it at top 15, but good enough, right? Creeping back towards average. But now, that a year under Canales, a year with that system, a year for Leggett as well. So it will be fascinating to see kind of the Panthers offense in general. And then what Bryce is, if he continues building off of the last few games he had of 2024, the Panthers could be an interesting team this year in a division that feels kind of open. The Bucks are kind of the one at the top, and now the Falcons have gotten better, but you still don't really know what they are with a second-year QB who didn't play a ton, but looked good. So it'll be fascinating to see what the Panthers do, and specifically what happens with Bryce Young. He's probably one of the most interesting in this group just because of the wide range of play we've seen from him. Where you've seen, as you pointed out, probably worst quarterback in the league, to looking
Best
like a
QB in the
top
class. Best QB in this
exactly, yeah,
class.
and in like a top 10 in the NFL type play. So excited to see what he continues to do this season. And then, you touched on the next guy a little bit. So second overall, the Texans drafted, CJ Stroud, and his rookie season was arguably, before Jaden had one too, but one of the better rookie seasons we've ever had.
No doubt, man. No doubt. I mean, the Texans were cooking at his rookie season. Like, they looked like they were destined to be the next like top dog in the AFC. That's what the feeling was, right? It was like, okay, maybe the Texans can knock off the Chiefs next year, the Bills or the Ravens or whatever. And even though the result ended up being the same in year two, they did take a step back. Like, they won one playoff game and got bounced, but they overall, if you look at the season as a whole, they took a massive step back. They did as an offense. That's why they fired Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, fired him. And they also were dealing with a ton of receiver injuries last year. Like, Nico Collins wasn't healthy the entire season. And of course, Tank Dell, which we don't know what he's going to be going forward. And of course, they attacked that position in the draft. But and Stroud just looked like he wasn't playing as well. Like at the end of the day, they still won the division. But as we know, as Colts and Titans fans, Dakota, this is not the hardest division to win. The AFC South has been the worst division in football since Peyton Manning retired and has pretty much stayed that. So it's not a tough division to win. They did win a playoff game, but it's on wild card weekend. You don't give them too much credit for that either. And because they want to compete for a championship, like that is the Texans' goal. That was the goal coming out of Stroud's rookie season, as you just said, one of the best rookie seasons we've seen in a long time, or at least right up there with the top ones. It's like they want to compete for AFC Championship, Super Bowl, and they just took a step back last year, man, and weren't able to do that.
Yeah, and he very similar. We've made this comp not from a playing style, but simply second overall pick, immediately exploded, just like Jaden Daniels did this past season. And the Texans were the first. They did it, tried to build around him going into this season. They got Stephon Diggs in the building, but to your point, the injury stuff, he got injured almost immediately, so never even really got to play with him. And then Tank Dell had his injuries and that pretty brutal one that kind of shut down his season, and Nico wasn't healthy the entire time. Nico played really well when he was out there, but there was not consistency from that wide receiver group. And then you pair that with an offensive line that took a pretty big step back.
They did.
And I think that's a big part of what led to some of CJ Stroud's regression. And what's interesting is, not just looking at his stats, PFF grading wise, like he didn't really change as much as people probably think. But he didn't progress forward, right? Exactly. And that's one thing that we just talked about with Jaden Daniels is that, and really the 2024 class in general, 2024 class in general, where a lot of these guys look really good immediately, don't expect linear progression. Like, that is kind of unfair expectations for your young quarterback, is to expect him to just suddenly be better every single year. Like, that's just not how quarterback play works. Look at Mahomes, who we've considered the best in the league. Like, he's had a few seasons lately that, to his standard, they're not that great. I think the expectations were probably way too high for the Texans in general. But to your point, within that building and what they were trying to do, they recognized we nailed the second overall pick. We have our franchise quarterback. Let's try to go win right now while he's on that rookie deal. And they did feel like, as a team, they took a step back. The offense specifically just wasn't as good this season. And, maybe Slowick's partly to blame. It did seem like it was a bit, I don't know, like vanilla would be a word for that offense. But I think part of that was due to the injuries and the offensive line also.
Yeah, the offensive line was terrible. That's why I'm giving Stroud grace with this last season, because everything around him was really not great. But overall, I have to give credit to Nico Collins for his development, man, because Nico Collins was, first of all, just a guy that kind of came out of nowhere. Like, I don't think anyone expected him to become like an X type of receiver in the league. And that really helped Stroud in his rookie season, just having that guy right away, because let's remember the Texans, his rookie season, a lot of the reason Stroud got so much credit for that rookie season was people thought that roster was awful. I mean, people thought the
Yeah.
Texans roster was absolutely terrible and that they could be fighting for the number 1 overall pick the following season, but they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. So completely changed people's opinion on the team and specifically Stroud. But then, yeah, I mean, like, again, like in year 2, it's like everything took such a step back. Like all the injuries, the offensive line, the play calling, everything took a step back. So it's like, I think Stroud's going to be fine, man. I think he is still one of the best young QBs in the league. I don't think, and this might hurt some fans' feelings, I do not think he's in that Josh Allen, Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. We had a buddy who got upset with us for not mentioning Joe Burrow in that category. He is definitely in that category.
Yeah.
But Stroud, I don't think is going to reach that echelon. However, he is fringe, any given year, fringe top 8 quarterback. Meaning, if you do enough around Stroud, if you put enough pieces around Stroud and the team's good enough, they can absolutely make a run. 100% they can make a run to a championship. That's how good Stroud is. I just don't think you can expect him to be in the AFC Championship every season. Like, I mean, we're already seeing that, but like with Mahomes and Josh Allen, like you expect those guys to make a deep playoff run year in, year out. I just don't think we can expect that from Stroud.
I would agree with that, unless he suddenly takes a bigger step forward, which he always can, right?
Yep.
Like, again, the Josh Allen and even Lamar, like sudden progression. I mean, people who love them obviously will claim I knew that was coming, but nobody did. Especially when accuracy was the issue. One of the biggest that's not really one of his issues is accuracy.
No.
It's sometimes decision making and getting himself into trouble a little bit. But to your point, like, I don't know if PFF is the one that kind of labeled that term of the like Matt Ryan inflection point, but basically, they had this idea of you basically need a quarterback at or above this level to really compete for a Super Bowl. And I would definitely say he's at or above that on a season to season basis. But to your point, will he enter the top 3-4 best quarterbacks in the NFL? The likelihood is just not there. But you might not need him to be, right? And like the defense especially has gotten so much better. With DeMeco Ryans being the coach, I think helps a lot there. That if you build a roster like this, that you fix the offense a bit, because that was the issue, right? Is that we just talked about that. You get the offense back together, Stroud can take you places.
I totally agree with that.
Exactly, and like and what he becomes fully, we'll have to see. But yeah, I would also agree that I would not be worried if I'm a Texans fan. And they also, to your point, they also went and got the 2 Iowa State receivers, in the draft. So they recognized the injuries and the uncertainty with Tank Dell, which is really unfortunate because even as like a division rival fan, I've loved him. And it's really unfortunate the injuries that he's had because it seemed like he was going to be a reliable target for Stroud. But they went out and got a couple guys to help build the offense back up around him. They did also trade Laremy Tunsil away. They drafted, I think they got Ursary, right? I think they drafted Ursary, traded up for him and to get him. And so you're kind of fixing that. But the offensive line is the thing I'd probably still be a little weary on. More than Stroud himself. I don't know if that piece got good enough to be able to set him up to succeed.
I agree with that. And I think the Tunsil thing was more so like not about play, is more so like external factors, like the penalties and the locker room stuff. And I think they think it'll be a net benefit, plus the draft capital they brought in with that, obviously.
Right.
But so I think Texans fans from that perspective are happy about that Tunsil move. I will say though, just to caution Texans fans, elite left tackles don't grow on cheese, brother. I mean, there are just a few elite left tackles, and I get all the penalties and whatnot, what have you, but from a down-to-down basis, Laremy Tunsil is absolutely an elite left tackle. So from that perspective, I totally get your concern. But I don't think, even though they trade away Laremy Tunsil, they definitely recognize this offseason, okay, Stroud is still good. We need to do better around him. Like we kind of got, even though they did have a big offseason last offseason, I don't think they made the right moves. Like sometimes you do stuff like the Stephon Diggs thing and it just doesn't work. They recognized again this year that it's like, okay, we are not good enough on offense. We're just not. We need more weapons because of the Tank Dill injury and whatnot. We need somebody out opposite side of Nico Collins. And they also did work on the offensive line. Now they did trade away Tunsil, but they did work on the offensive line in the draft and in free agency. So it's going to be intriguing, man. I think Stroud right now for me is still the favorite to be the best out of this class. He's been consistently good his entire career so far, and he was good at Ohio State. My only question with him is the ceiling at this point. But again, like it's like he's shown a high enough ceiling to me that you can win with that. It's just going to be tough in the loaded AFC with the QB situation,
and that is at the end of the day the toughest thing for all young AFC quarterbacks is the guys we just mentioned. Every single one of them, Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Burrow, are all in the AFC, and that's not even including Herbert, who's I think like
right there.
Exactly. Like the AFC is just stupidly loaded at quarterback right now. So you have to have a guy who is borderline elite to be able to compete in this conference. Fortunately, in the division right now for the AFC South, unless we don't know what Cam Ward is, but like Trevor's been underwhelming for the generational hype he got and everything. It is a wide open, like you could win that easily kind of every year right now. So I mean, getting there is the first goal, and I think Stroud will definitely put them in position to do that every season. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because he has been, he has like the moments where it just seems like sometimes he just has a bad game, but consistently wise, he's been the best out of this class by far, honestly.
Yeah, by far.
But to a point that has been talked about a lot, like the way that Bryce ended his 2024 season. It does make this conversation start to become interesting in terms of the future, not what they've done, because it's obvious that Stroud was better. But if Bryce Young can continue to put together the games that he ended 2024 with, we start to open up a really interesting discussion between him and Stroud.
We really do, man, because it's not just, I think the NFL evidence is what matters the most. Let me say that. That's clear to me. It's 2 years of NFL evidence is what we should look at more than anything. But let's not forget, Bryce Young was the consensus number 1 overall pick in 2023. He was the consensus number 1 overall quarterback. Number 2 overall, Dakota, the day of the draft, the favorite to go number 2 overall was Will Levis. It was not CJ Stroud. So that's just trying to paint a picture like, okay, Bryce Young was here, and in this class before they were drafted was here, and everyone else was down here. It's like the debate was everyone else, not number 1. Yeah. And I think that matters to a certain extent. Like I just got done saying how the NFL evidence matters more, but the college evidence is still there, right? Like Bryce Young was really good in college, and he was the consensus number 1 overall pick. And so, it's interesting, like, because he's starting, like, at the end of last year, it was close enough. And maybe even Bryce was a little bit better than Stroud. It's like, okay, now you have to start asking that question. And I think it's obvious, like coming into the year or coming into the rookie years, Stroud did have a better situation. It was slightly better on paper, probably, and ended up being quite a bit better. But I mean, it's like you said, man, it's close now. It's close. It's going to be, it's one of the main things I'm watching for next year. It's like, who plays better? Like, I like looking at it just from a class perspective. Who's going to be the best QB from this class? And I think it seemed so obvious after the rookie season. Like, no one would have said Bryce, dude. Literally nobody would have said Bryce after the rookie years. But now I think it's a lot closer.
Yeah, it's Will Levis now.
Yeah.
It honestly, and I love situations like this as well, because we've seen a handful of the past just 10 to 15 years. Last year, when a quarterback goes 1-2, they always get thrown into a bucket and compared to one another, and where it's already happening with Caleb and Daniels, where people start to do the revisionist history of, we said Jaden should have gone number 1 overall. You didn't. No one did. But they're going to be compared to one another forever. And then going back, it's happened numerous times where, even in 2016 when Goff and Wentz went, and then the year before with Mariota and Winston, and then even back to Luck.
RG3
Luck and RG3. Like, it's just been a thing when you have a quarterback go 1 and 2, and I love that. It adds some drama and, like, story to these quarterbacks and what we're comparing. But, to your point, when they were coming out, and the thing that Bryce is going to have weighing over his head is the expectations were higher because of what you just said, right? And the fact that a team traded for future capital, their star wide receiver, to go get him. And in hindsight, it looks pretty rough.
It does, man. It does. It looks really rough.
And I don't know personally, like at the time, I thought Bryce Young was the number 1 quarterback, like a lot of people. But I appreciate trading up for a quarterback, but at the time it felt kind of extreme for Bryce of the prospects to be traded up for like that. Because even Goff coming out was kind of a more renowned, but even then 15 spots was kind of insane back then. But that also will play a role in this going forward for both of them, is that expectations. Being the 2nd overall, you're never going to have as much as the guy who was 1st, especially when the team traded up for.
No doubt about it. Also throw out Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf. Peyton in the background,
that
1 and 2.
Rivalry lasted all of 6 weeks.
Yeah, no question. Lasted through rookie OTAs, and that was about it. But yeah, dude, the trade aspect is fascinating because poor Bryce isn't now just being compared to the other guys from this class, CJ Stroud in particular, like you just laid out, but he's also being compared to Caleb Williams. And that's the problem because the Bears from that trade got the Panthers' 1st overall pick, which they used on Caleb Williams, which at the time, let's remember, again, like one thing that I like to make clear on our show and in general when we have these discussions, dude, is what people thought at the time. When the Panthers made this trade, a lot of people were saying, well, Caleb Williams is coming out next year, because Caleb Williams already had that hype at the time. And people are saying, well, tank for Caleb. Even in the year with Bryce Young, people felt like Caleb at the time was a better prospect, but was not draft eligible yet. So he now has to not only outplay Stroud, he has to also outplay Caleb Williams, which, it's going to be tough. I think he did last year. He definitely outplayed Caleb last year. But yeah, man, the trade definitely adds like fuel to this fire. But I think Panthers fans, and we talked about how Texans fans should feel really good. Panthers fans should too, though, because you traded all that stuff away, but let's not forget, in the middle of 2024, you thought you did not have a quarterback anymore. Like you were playing Andy Dalton, and Bryce Young was healthy. Like, it wasn't a situation where Bryce Young was hurt. He was healthy, ready to play, but you were playing Andy Dalton. But now it looks like the Panthers now again at least have hope for a franchise quarterback in Bryce Young.
It is a really, really good point that the trade does create a direct line between Bryce and Caleb as well. Panthers fans, it's probably going to be hard to ever fully just forget about this trade and move on from it, but you got to deal with what you got and what you were given. And to be honest, you probably feel a little bit better after Caleb didn't have a great rookie season. He had a pretty good one, but he had his ups and downs pretty heavily, and he may get better. But I think what Bryce did at the end of the season, what the Panthers did this offseason to make things better, and the connection he seems to have with Canales, I would be optimistic going forward. And then with Stroud, this comparison will exist for him as well, because the argument will come back on, if Bryce does end up kind of reverting back, then it comes back to, well, the Texans got the best quarterback in this class, 2nd overall. And I think he will be at minimum fighting for the division in the AFC South for his career. Yeah. And I think they're going to be in solid shape for a while. So, well, from 2 Titans and Colts fans, it kind of sucks for us, but
we're used to it.
You got a franchise quarterback, and try not to be too jealous, because I also just like him. I like both of these guys too. That's the other thing. I think they're both very easy guys to root for, like very down to earth and know the game. It's just, so we'll be rooting for them both, and it'll be fascinating to watch them compete.
No doubt, man. No doubt.
All right, now on to a drop-off. We're going to go into the next 2 guys. So, 4th overall, the Colts draft Anthony Richardson out of Florida, who had basically no production at Florida, was an insane athlete, and was really, really young. Basically had no tread on the tires whatsoever. and they took a shot on him, and his rookie year was cut short due to injury, and he looked okay.
Yeah. He had moments, man. That's what I'll say about AR. He's had moments in the league. He has plays. He has games where he looks like he can be good. The issue, though, is going back to college, even his college days, which he, like, to your point, Dakota, he has very little production in college because he has very little playing time in college. He really only had the one season. And even going back to college, he just has never been consistently accurate with the football. That's his big issue is accuracy. Now, the completion percentage looks worse this year. And as a Colts fan, I know this because of some of the drops. There were a lot of drops last year. And I know Colts fans are probably thinking that, especially A.D. Mitchell. A lot of drops for Adonai Mitchell this past season. However, again, we have now his college evidence, his limited NFL evidence because of injury and getting benched and all that and whatnot. We'll get into that at some point. But the evidence we have is that his level of accuracy just doesn't play in the league. He puts up some of the craziest stat lines, man. Like 9 completion games where he's thrown for over 200 yards. Like that's the AR experience. To your point, he's still extremely young. And he is raw still at this point in time. But as a Colts fan, where I'm at with it, and from an analyst perspective as well, I am saying this is the season. Specifically from an injury perspective. If you cannot stay healthy, because for some reason Anthony Richardson, like there was kind of an old adage that like the bigger quarterbacks were able to take the hits, man. That's always kind of been like kind of people's perception on it. And for Josh Allen, that's the case. Like Josh Allen can do that. Anthony Richardson cannot. When he gets hit, man, it looks like a car crash. It looks worse than it is. And he gets up limping after every single hit he takes. Like even when he's not hurt, he gets up limping. He just can't. It just feels to me so far through his career, he can't handle the physicality of the NFL. That's what it looks like to me. Case in point, tapping out in the middle of the game. I mean, you just cannot do that as a quarterback. You just can't. And like and don't take it from my point of view, because I'm just some guy with the podcast. What the players had to say about that, like guys, not just Pat McAfee. I'm talking about guys on the roster, Ryan Kelly, Quentin Nelson, especially the offensive linemen, Dakota, who don't get to tap out of the game, by the way. Offensive linemen play every single snap of a game most of the time. So they did not like it, man. They did not like that one bit. So specifically this season, I'm not just looking at him getting better from an accuracy standpoint, but can he play 17 games? That to me is the most important part of Anthony Richardson's 2025 season.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point earlier with the A.D. Mitchell thing. It felt like either A.D. Mitchell was wide open and he missed him, or put it right in his breadbasket and he just dropped it. So his completion percentage definitely wasn't as bad as it looked. He is so fascinating to me because he is an absolute physical specimen, and he's got a cannon. And he probably had the best throw of the entire season. I think it was literally like week 1, that throw to Alec Pierce. It was either week 1 or 2. Like it was early in the year. Like getting hit, falling back, just absolute like 60-yard dot. Yeah. But that's the problem, is that the consistency from an accurate perspective just doesn't exist. Like he's missing guys that are wide open. It seems like he hasn't gotten a feel for the game yet. And it's probably due to the lack of experience. But, the tapping out thing, I think, says more about maybe just his love for the game, right? And like, is this what he wants to actually be doing with his life? And I don't want to make assumptions on the guy, but like, if a guy's willing to tap out in the middle of a play, how much is he willing to put in the work in the offseason to get better, to become more accurate, to learn that, to do all those things to become a really good NFL quarterback? I just don't know. But to your point too, with the running, it sucks because you want to use him in the run game because of his size. But I mean, I forgot what game that was, but where he got like hit in the hip and it looked like he had died on the field. And then the crazy part was Steichen had him back out there like 3 plays later, and they just ran a play again with him. I'm like, dude, he looks injured. Don't do this to the guy. And And it sucks because that is one of the best parts of his game. And, he had about 500 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns this past season, but the health is a concern. And it is a unique situation because, to your point, like, Big Ben's another good example of that. Like, Big Ben was like a freaking bowling ball back there and was taking hits and stuff. Dude didn't miss time ever. Like, you just fought through it. And part of that may come back to toughness and stuff, but like the injuries he's also had have been like severe ones. The shoulder thing, you can't really just play through that. So it will be fascinating to see, can he put a full season together? Because he does have, of these 4 guys, the most upside.
Yeah, as far as athleticism and arm strength and everything.
He does. That's just, I think, an objective opinion of these 4 guys. The upside is the highest.
And the situation is fine. The situation's fine. I won't say it's an elite situation, but the Colts have one of the best offensive lines in the league still. Although they did lose pieces like Howard's, they have, I think, solid depth, but they lost 2 starters in Will Fries and Ryan Kelly.
Because they didn't want to play with AR. I'm making that up.
Ryan Kelly may have legitimately not have to go, dude. He called him out multiple times in the media. Yeah. And I think and I don't think a lot of what you're saying is assumptions, man. Like, a lot of the work ethic questions and the love for the game questions, like, players were saying that, dude. Not just dudes with the podcast. Players were saying these things. And, like, players' opinions mean a lot in the locker room, dude. They mean a lot in the locker room. They mean everything. Like, people, like, the media's perspective means nothing to the players. Other players' perspectives mean everything to them. So, yeah, dude. Those are very legitimate concerns for AR. And like you said, he does have the athletic upside and the arm strength and everything. But, like, you have to show it. At some point, you have to stop saying the guy's young and he doesn't have a lot of experience. Like, at some point, like, the experience, part of the experience thing, dude, is directly because of Anthony Richardson. It's directly because he can't stay healthy. And that's part of it. Sometimes guys are just injury prone. But I will caution Colts fans, other Colts fans. I've been a Colts fan my whole life, Dakota. Like, as you know this, like, I became a Colts fan when I was about 10 years old with the great Peyton Manning in the background. I have here in the background. So here's the deal. Like, you can't just point to one play and say, well, look at this play. Like, I've seen so many Colts fans post that same Alec Pierce throw over and over and over. Well, look at this play. Like, if he can just replicate this 10 times a game, he's going to be the best quarterback ever. That's the thing about greatness. Like, greatness is all about consistency, dude. It's all about the consistency. On a game-by-game, play-by-play basis, Peyton Manning was amazing. He was great. And it wasn't because of plays like that. It wasn't just because of the highlight reel. It was because he was consistently good season after season, consistently was winning season after season. Anthony Richardson has never shown that level of consistency. At Florida, he hasn't shown it with the Colts. He hasn't shown it on a game-by-game basis or a play-by-play basis. He just has never shown that. So, yes, the high end is there, but the high end only matters if you can consistently put that together. He will always be compared to Josh Allen until his last snap in the NFL, because Josh Allen, very similar prospect, right? Very similar build, very similar like play style, very similar strengths of their game, which is arm strength and athleticism and the size and everything. And Josh Allen was extremely raw coming out. He was extremely, extremely raw. He was not good his first 2 seasons in the league. So that's why some Colts fans still have hope. But I will say that Josh Allen showed a higher baseline in the league. Like, his rookie season was really bad. His second season, he took a step forward, and it kind of started to feel like by Josh Allen's second season, okay, this guy might be starting to put it together. And the biggest point I'll make about that comparison, Dakota, which is a point I've kind of already made, which is Josh Allen has been healthy his entire career, dude. He has never missed a snap, and he takes some of the biggest hits I've seen. The dude takes hit after hit. They run him. I mean, there's been games where the Bills run him into the ground, dude, and he just never comes out of the game. That's a big part of this. Like, even if AR can reach that level of potential, he has to be available, man.
Absolutely, yeah. And the love of the game thing is still the very interesting part, because to get to that point, it's on him, right? Like, and you touched on the situation. They had a decent. Last year had a really good offensive line. You have weapons there. Um, at the end of the day, it's all on him to make that step forward, and it just doesn't look plausible currently. The age thing is also just really. He literally just turned 23, and like literally a week ago today, apparently. Also, it's just crazy to me. Old moment. Dude was born in 2002
Oh,
and is an
it's
NFL
so
quarterback who's
depressing,
been in the
dude.
league for many. Makes us feel old, but
It
yeah,
does.
he is still so young, and that's what people are going to cling to. And you're Josh Allen. People probably would have taken a chance on him anyway because of that. But like, man, Josh Allen probably set some franchises back a few years because they're so willing to take chances on guys, thinking they can do what the Bills did with Josh Allen. And I don't want to claim that all offensive coordinators stuff are like this, but there's a bit of cockiness that comes to that where you're like, oh, I can get the most out of this guy. They just didn't know how to use him. I can make him what he can be. And after 2 seasons, it's hard to be super optimistic. But to your point, this season is the season where you find out.
Yes,
Because
it
there's
has
still
to be the last season.
Yeah. Exactly. It kind of has to be. If it's unless he looks great, it's probably going to be a move on thing. And the high end plays are probably the reason you're even giving him that shot. If he didn't show those highlight reel plays, you probably would have moved on after this season. But those do cling the hope. It keeps the coaching staff probably saying, man, if we could just get this on a down to down basis, we would have something special. But the problem is the volatility is like the most extreme, where you have that highlight reel play, and then you have him missing guys on dig routes by 10 yards.
And I was just about to say that, Dakota. It's the easy stuff for AR. That's the biggest problem. It's the easy stuff, man. And you can't miss the easy stuff in the league, dude. The league is too hard. It's too tough to win in the NFL. You have to take the easy stuff and be able to consistently get that on a drive by drive basis. And he just hasn't shown that yet in the NFL. And yeah, I mean, people are going to cling on to the youth and stuff. And I get it to a certain extent. But I mean, this offseason, right? They're bringing in Daniel Jones. They're bringing in Daniel Jones for competition. Well, let me be clear about this. They want Anthony Richardson to win the job because Chris Ballard's job depends on Anthony Richardson becoming good. I am somewhat intrigued by Daniel Jones getting the best situation he's ever been in. I'll be honest. I am intrigued by that because Daniel Jones has shown a higher baseline than Anthony Richardson in the league and has dealt with way worse situations, like incredibly worse situations. But they want AR to win that job. Let's not get this twisted, man. Anthony Richardson is the favorite to win that job, no question about it. Because if he's not good, like, it's either going to take Daniel Jones miraculously turning his career around and Shane Steichen getting the best out of Daniel Jones, which we've seen recently, right? We just saw it with Sam Darnold. That's an example as of last year, that we saw of a guy that seemed like his career as a starter was done, but was turned around. So it's not completely impossible. It's either going to take that or Anthony Richardson winning this job and being good, and like showing that he can consistently be good on a game by game basis. So like, I mean, jobs are on the line, dude. So that's the thing. Like, he needs to win the job, and he likely will win the job. And if he's not good, dude, I think Chris Ballard and Shane, I think it's going to be a complete clean house, situation with Indianapolis.
Yeah. And it's such an interesting situation where, like, I know this, don't want to just box score look after everything I said, but like the stats, the lack of production for a quarterback to go 4th overall. He 54% completion percentage, 17 touchdowns and 9 picks. Is really the only season he started as a redshirt sophomore or whatever. It's just, yeah, it was a lot. It's eggs into one basket that did not have much proof to it. And unfortunately, it's kind of unraveling the way people would have probably expected. But yeah, Daniel Jones is really fascinating, and the Colts, with the situation he had in New York, it being just atrocious outside of Saquon the entire time he was there, I will be fascinated to see what he is. I also think it is a safe bet that, I don't know what the odds are on this, but I would take that bet fully that we will see AR and Danny Dimes. And to be honest, I would be bold enough. My bold take for the season is we see all three. Riley Leonard makes the roster. We see all three.
Oh
because
no,
Danny
don't say
Dimes
that.
has a Danny Dimes game where they're like, we can't leave him out there. AR's hurt.
We can't
We
leave.
got to put in Riley.
We had to see what Riley's got. It's an interesting situation, man. The Colts are kind of in a weird situation, a little bit like the Steelers, where it's like, obviously they had the 4th overall pick with Richardson. They got Richardson, but it's going to be tough for this team to just be completely abysmal. They're in one of the worst divisions in football, which makes their schedule easier every year. And they have a good enough roster where it's like, are you going to be able to draft in the top 5 with this solid of a roster? It's not like one of the best in the league, but it's solid enough where it's like you shouldn't be drafting in the top 5. But they're also without, or potentially without, a franchise quarterback. It's all dependent on this year. Like, I would say to Colts fans, if AR doesn't show it this year, just move on. Like, just move on. Just from a mental perspective, right? Just from a mental perspective, because it's just like 3 seasons is enough, especially from the injury perspective. Like, if he gets hurt again, and like you said, like to your point, it's like we have enough evidence at this point where it's like that's likely going to happen. Like, it's what we've seen so far, so it would make no sense for it not to continue to happen. It's possible it doesn't, but it likely will. And if we see it again, it's like, okay, you just have to mentally move on. Like, you just have to mentally move on, because I can tell you, if AR doesn't work out and Danny Dimes doesn't have a resurgence of some kind, or maybe just a beginning, if you will. But if he doesn't have that, then it's like it's the ballot air is over. It's clean house time for the Colts, in my opinion.
Yeah, and again, clinging to the highlight reel. It'd be nice to see him get to that full potential, but a lot of quarterbacks never do. Like, it's just what happens. There are quarterbacks that get drafted top 5, top 10 all the time that just don't reach what people thought they could be. And speaking of clinging on to highlight reels, I see Colts fans where they are, and then the next guy, you touched on it. Will Levis dropped out of the first round, which was a shock on draft night. I think it was a shock to him. And then the Titans take him at the top of the top of the second. And as a Titans fan, I thought I did not want to draft him in the first round at all. But for the second round, I was like, that's pretty good value. Like, that you take shots on quarterbacks. We'll see. And rookie season wise, he kind of made a splash when he went in there. And it's to your point with the AR stuff. Titans fans do this a lot where they just show all those throws from the Falcons game. When he came in the Oilers uniforms against the Falcons and made some beautiful plays, they just clinged on to that. Like, let's just get this from him every week. And even following that, like in his rookie season, he didn't really, kind of fell off immediately because he threw like 4 touchdowns in that game, no picks, and then went on to go 4-4 for the rest of the season. And then going into this season, there's a lot of stuff been talked about lately where it was an unfortunate misreporting by Tron Davenport, one of the Titans guys, that accidentally said that Will Levis said he was thrown into the fire last season. And a lot of Titans fans freaked out, rightfully, because if he did say that, that's insane, because he had a full off season as the starting quarterback.
That would be nuts. Yeah, exactly.
But he just said that he was basically not foreign to being kind of thrown into a situation, whatever. Like, it wasn't a bad thing. But he did have a full offseason with a coach, with a team that was with a receiving core that wasn't bad going into the season. They went and got Calvin Ridley for him, and he just was not good. His level of inconsistency, Hall of Fame worthy. Like the ability to be that inconsistent, and then the meme playability is legendary. No one will ever top his ability to make a meme.
His meme plays, dude. There was a stretch in the beginning of last year where it was like every week Will Levis was going viral for a meme play, dude. I hope something like that happens this year, because that was special. I want to cover that on our channel if it does happen next year with some quarterback. But yeah, he was funny to watch at points last year. I will say, though, going back to the draft perspective, because just because you bust on drafting a quarterback doesn't mean it was a bad decision. And specifically in the Titans case, it was an incredible decision in my point, or I will say incredible process, because you take the position player in the first round, which, Skronski hasn't really worked out either to the extent they want him to. I think he's become a solid starter, but
not 11th overall.
No, not 11th overall, but you wait on taking the quarterback, which Will Levis was a second round talent. Like he was a second round talent. And I don't even think he had the high end potential that AR had, right? He doesn't have that suit. Like he has the tools. He has a good arm. He doesn't have a bad arm by any means. He has a really good arm, but he doesn't have like the insane athleticism or anything like that where you would be like, okay, this guy has to be a top 10 pick. That's why he fell to the second round. And the Titans were patient and they got him in the second. And I think that was a solid move. Just because it didn't work out doesn't mean it wasn't the right move. And in his defense, it was one of the worst situations. I mean, it was a really bad offensive line, especially his rookie year. And they try to do things with the receiving core. It was still never enough, I think, with the receiving core. But Will Levis's issue was the mean place. It was what the hell are you doing? This cannot play anywhere. This cannot play on any level. Like you just cannot, because those kind of plays, Dakota, it's worse than just throwing an interception to me, because it's like a locker room thing. It's like people are going to directly, because sometimes with a pick, it's like, okay, it's a miscommunication. It was a tough read. It was like a guy trying to make a play, whatever. You can give the QB grace. When Will Levis is literally just fumbling it away to the defense or just throwing it away, whatever, it's like, no, the teammates are going to directly blame the quarterback because it is directly his fault. It's literally no one else's fault other than him. And you saw it with the coach last year, man. Callahan was literally like, there was times last year where Callahan was just like, dude, what am I working with here? He just couldn't stand it anymore. So I honestly think that unless there's like a Steelers situation where the Steelers are desperate and they need to go get a guy, because I mean, Aaron Rodgers, even though Joy Taylor apparently on Fox doesn't realize this, Aaron Rodgers is currently not a Steeler. He's currently not on the Steelers roster.
Stop the takes.
It's not
stop takes about guys not being on rosters.
You have to at least know what you're talking about. He is not a Steeler. So I could see potentially like that being a landing spot for a potential starting job for Will Levis. But outside of that, man, I think he's done. I think he's done getting a chance. Like he's going to be a backup with starting experience who has shown high end play. Like you said, like, you know, people will point to the Falcons game and whatnot, 4 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. So it was, you know, there was some upside with Levis in the league, but mostly it wasn't good enough. And when you're a second round pick, you're not going to get the leash that a top 5 pick like Anthony Richardson was. You're not going to get that kind of leash. And now the Titans, as a franchise, they can be happy because now you have new hope in Cam Ward. Which will Levis help you get that pick?
I got my Cam Ward jersey. It's not in here. I got my Cam Ward jersey though, so I've already moved on. I got my Will Levis one in there.
Ready to burn. No, you gotta thank Will Levis because Will Levis helped you get Cam Ward. Yeah, that's how you gotta look at it.
That's the way to look at it. It all worked out. And yeah, one of the, again, you touched on it. The benefit of the thing I will give Levis credit for, or like defend him with, is the offensive line was atrocious his entire time here. It has been abysmal. Bottom 3 in the NFL bad. I mean, I had to sit out there and watch, our left tackle turnstile from Andre Dillard to I've already purged his name. Petit Frere is awful at right tackle, and then who's the other? I've already purged him from my mind. Dennis Daly.
Oh,
one of the worst football players I've ever watched.
Oh no.
But like there was so many plays last year with Dillard where there was I think it's against the Steelers, which is unfortunate, but like he literally didn't get off the ball. Like Will Levis was getting hit 0.5 seconds after it snapped, and it's like you take that. And it kind of goes back to some conversations we've had in the past on the show about, the situation kind of breaking a quarterback immediately. Like, what could have quarterbacks been had they gone to better situations? That's definitely a question, but I think the meme plays is outside of that, right? Like, he maybe could have been a little bit better on a down-to-down basis if he had an offensive line and a receiving core that, didn't have guys on IR constantly.
Him, the meme plays are on him.
Exactly. And I won't forget, we were moving into this house. We were over here cleaning it the day we played the Bears. The season started, and I had it on my phone while cleaning. And
oh no,
man, we're actually looking pretty good. And then the underhanded pick 6 happened, and I was like, "What the hell did I just?" Watch?
Oh,
and then it just kept happening, and I pretty soon it was easy to see that this guy's just not going to be it. And again, that's outside of the situation he was in. because those things are inexcusable. The fumble we had later on in the season when he like put the ball down and just dropped it, like that was in a crucial red zone situation as well. Inexcusable plays, and it just, the Titans did the right thing in moving on, and I'm glad that it worked out the way it did, because he did help us get the number 1 overall pick, and he's obviously handling it like okay. But my thing would be, I would honestly be surprised if he's on this roster by the time the season starts. I think they've signed Brandon Allen and freaking Tim Boyle somehow. But with that in mind, I just don't think it will make sense to keep him on the roster as a backup. Like, what good does that do? You need to move on. If somebody will give you a 7th round pick for him to go be their backup, take it and move on. But to your point, I think his last chance at starting, or I won't say last, but his only immediate path to starting for the near future
is the Steelers.
If the Steelers, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign, I think he could end up going there to compete for that job. Otherwise, whether it's with Tennessee or somewhere else, he's destined to be a backup now.
That would be pretty funny, because he'd be going to join Mason Rudolph again in that QB room.
Oh, yeah, the QB. Hey, duo. Chemistry.
It's chemistry, man. They played together. I think that's his only like immediate chance if the Steelers get super desperate. But yeah, man, it's just, again, I think, let's be honest about the situation. It was a fine draft pick. You can look at it as you earned a 2nd round pick, but that's in hindsight. That's only hindsight. You don't know that at the time, because imagine if you drafted Will Levis in the 2nd round and he ended up being your franchise quarterback. I mean, there was Titans fans that thought that at points in his career.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, like it's not a bad draft pick. It was good process. Of course, the guy that made the draft pick is no longer there. Maybe partly why, but yeah, man, it's I think he's a solid backup option going forward, like a solid potential. You need a starter in a bad situation where your starter goes down, whatever. I think that's kind of his career going forward.
Definitely. And yeah, we will assume if Cam Ward ends up being a great quarterback, then we will always be thankful for our time with Will Levis.
For Will Levis, because he helped you get it. He helped you get the pick.
I'll frame my jersey of his instead of Cam Ward's. But yeah, so those were the 4 major quarterbacks with, that were starters or expected to be starters from that 2023 class. We're not going to spend a ton of time on these other guys, but just worth noting some of the others from that class that have, a few have seen playing time. Hendon Hooker's in. We had a ton of fans that were freaking out when Will Levis got drafted, and there was all this, he should have gone higher thing. But as a prospect, he went where he should have gone. It would be interesting to see him. He's played a little bit in the preseason. He hasn't had much time to play, so we no clue what he is. The 2 guys, there's one other guy who's played a good amount, which is Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he's already kind of on the move. He got traded for, and he's been
Did he get traded to the Eagles?
Yeah, he's just not been very, and they still draft back, which is funny, but he basically can just run around. That's been his thing. And then Tanner, which ironically, the Eagles, Tanner McKee. Tanner McKee played in like 1 game or so, and he actually looked pretty good.
It was solid,
I think was it Renner that was like super high on him?
Super high on Tanner McKee.
Super high on Tanner McKee. So who knows? They may have the best quarterback. Yeah, they may have the best quarterback room in the whole NFL now by far.
Oh yeah, maybe.
And then a few other guys. Clayton Tune, he hasn't played any. Stetson Bennett, who kind of had some, off the field stuff, not negative, but just like needed to take time away from the game. And then Jake Haener, pretty boy Haener, who had this funny pictures, who's now competing for the starting job.
Yeah, I mean,
because that quarterback room is looking grim.
Yeah, you never know, dude. He could be the Saints starter going forward.
He's not looked good when he's played, and he had injury history in college as well. And I wouldn't be.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll ever see another like legit starter from this class. I think the best chance probably is Hendon Hooker. He hasn't really got his shot yet because, they drafted him in like kind of a situation where it's like, okay, we don't really believe in Goff. We think Goff is a good starter going forward. We're not sure if we've seen enough from Goff, and we don't know what's going to happen going forward kind of thing. But, of course, Goff has been fantastic. But that could change. I mean, they just lost their offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson to the Bears, of course. So you never know if Hendon will ever get a chance, and we don't really know if he's good or not because he just hasn't got his opportunity. But yeah, man, it's honestly kind of a light class. Like it's not like the class overall is just not, it wasn't a deep QB class. It's not like this 2024 QB class that we literally just got done reviewing. That was absolutely loaded. And really to me, like unless AR turns it around, it's a 2 QB class. Like what will, Bryce and CJ do going forward, and like how will they compare to one another going forward and see who's better. But overall, it's kind of a meh class that we might get a couple solid to great QBs out of it.
Yeah, I think even just looking at like career backups, there's probably only a few that'll be around, like Hooker, Tanner McKee, and DTR. DTR mainly from his athleticism perspective, but yeah, I agree. We won't know, with Hooker, the Goff hadn't really played it ton before that pick was made, and then obviously the past 2 seasons he's been great. So he'll probably never be more than a backup. Probably won't get that shot. Yeah, exactly. Unless somebody traded for him for some reason, but that just doesn't really happen anymore. I feel like that was more of a thing back, especially in like the 90s, where you would just trade for backup quarterbacks that played for like one preseason game that looked good, and you're like, we'll give him a shot. But now there's always so many quarterbacks coming out. So yeah. It will, with this class, we'll see what Anthony Richardson is this year, but this class is going to be defined by that Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud and what they are. And I'm excited to watch it. I'm rooting for both those guys. Regardless of a division rival or whatever, like as fans of the NFL, I just want to see good young quarterbacks. And it's better for the product of the NFL and for the league as a whole. And parity. The more good quarterbacks there are in the NFL, the better the parity is. And I think, obviously we as fans of our teams want to see us just win 7 straight Super Bowls. But as just fans of the NFL, you like watching, different teams competing constantly and things like that. So fascinating to see what Bryce and Stroud do this upcoming season. And then if AR puts it together, and then where Will Levis will be backing up.
Yeah, that's pretty much the story of this class. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be fascinating to see those 2 top guys going forward and see how that plays out for them. And yeah, I think they, especially Bryce, is going to be fascinating, man. Can he keep up what he did at the end of last year?
And essentially catch Stroud in terms of their NFL career so far. He's chasing him, is the way to put it. Like he is trying to chase down Stroud or take him in terms of NFL. So excited to watch it play out. Appreciate everybody that tuned in, and anybody that watches, please like, share, subscribe, follow, do all those fun things. We really appreciate it. Leave us comments. Let us know what you think of the 23. If you'd want to see us do another one, a 2022, well, no, probably not a 22.
Just be Brock Purdy, pretty much.
Literally. But 21 and 20 become pretty interesting now.
Yeah, true.
So, let us know if you'd like us to do anything like that. If not, we'll have some other content out. Probably going to start doing this consistently on Thursdays. So that'll kind of be our cadence going forward. So you can look for us then. But as always, we appreciate it. And until next time.
Thanks for talking ball with us.